Hello and welcome back to Granted Gardens. So we have been trying to think of a few ideas of stuff that we can share now that the weather's changing throughout the winter that we think that you guys would be really interested in. So we're going to actually start a cooking series. Today we're going to start off with something really simple, something that Tyler has made before that I absolutely love. He calls it his hamburger salsa, and it's made out of some of the stuff that we have left over from the garden, such as like green tomatoes, to use up some of the stuff now that the first frost has come around, as well as adding a few more ingredients. So he's going to walk you through how he makes his hamburger salsa. Let's check it out.
So today we're going to do cheeseburger salsa. It's something newer that I just tried randomly and it ended up being pretty good. So we're going to start with all of our cherry tomatoes that we've been growing this year, and this is pretty much like our last harvest. Most of these were actually green when we picked them, and now some of them have actually ripened up a little bit. But I just went through and sliced most of them, and now we're going to go through and just kind of mediumly chop these. We don't want to eviscerate these because this is going to release a lot of liquid, which we don't necessarily need. We don't want to make salsa soup. We want to make salsa like we all normally know it. Once we get this together, we'll put it in the mason jar, then we'll add a few other things, and then we'll jump back into it. So we're going to add some garlic. The easiest way that I ever learned how to do this is you just cut a little bit off the bottom where the stem piece is. Obviously stem piece, this is the top. Take your blade, stick it down, gentle punch, and then usually it comes out pretty easy. Then we're just going to chop this up, add it to it, and then we'll add the next ingredient. Okay. Alright, so we have our garlic minced up. You want it about this size, smaller. If you're a big garlic fiend like me, you can leave it a little bigger. But when you're making stuff on the fly and it's a short-term kind of thing, because we're going to eat this in a couple hours, you want it as fine as possible because that emulsifies it in what you're doing, so you get all the flavors faster. I make coleslaw a lot, and if you're gonna have a lot of time to let it set up in the refrigerator, you can actually leave the pieces bigger so you get those big chunks of garlic flavor in there. But because we're kind of doing this quickly, you want to keep it small. Also, this is probably about 2 cups of tomatoes, and right here is maybe 2.5 tablespoons of garlic. For us, this was about 5 or 6 cloves, but they were very, very small cloves. This isn't elephant garlic that you can get at the grocery store where each clove is like that. So if you have smaller garlic, you kind of have to adjust. I don't measure things very often, but we're starting this, so I'm going to try to be more specific about what I'm adding so that it's easier for other people to replicate. So we've gone ahead and minced some red onion. If your red onion's more of the stronger of the onion family, if you wanted to get something more on the sweet side, you could go with like a Vidalia onion, or if you wanted something more neutral, you could go with a white onion. I haven't done much with them, but you can also get shallots, which are a cross between an onion and a garlic. They have a light garlic flavor and a light onion flavor, so you could actually kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I have hard trouble even finding shallots these days, but if you find them, you can use them. I went ahead and cut maybe 1/6 of this red onion. It's actually too much to actually use, so this half we're not going to use, this half we will. If I had to guess, 4 tablespoons, maybe of 1/4 of a cup, but we'll go ahead and add this. So our last ingredient is actually going to be pickles. These are actually our homemade pickles that we made ourselves with cucumbers from our garden that we also grew. we've got about 3/4 of a cup. If you're not 100% a huge pickle fan, you could probably get away with another 1/4 cup, same with the onions. But Melissa is the pickle fiend of the family, so I tend to overshoot pickles than ever undershoot them. But we'll add this, and this will be the last produce. The rest will just be kind of flavorings that we'll add to bring it into the cheeseburger realm, not so much the regular salsa realm. You'll also not find pickles in regular salsa. We're gonna add maybe a tablespoon of ketchup, and then we're going to add maybe a teaspoon of mustard, a couple shakes of chili powder just to give it a little extra seasoning. Chili powder is actually made from a couple different things. It's not just a chili pepper. There is like paprika and other stuff in there. We're gonna add a pretty generous amount of pepper, maybe 1.5 tablespoons. And then one of the last things is me going to try to pour just a little bit out of this whole gallon of white vinegar. You want to do this because, again, with salsa, salsa's more on the sweet or the hot side. You're never going to find it on the vinegary side. But this actually, again, helps pull it into the cheeseburger realm instead of salsa. Because obviously we're not making just salsa, we're making something that goes on like continental food. Hot dogs, steak, cheeseburgers, like tonight. So we'll add about 1 tablespoon. That's just going to help bring everything together as well as give us a little extra liquid. Once I start shaking this up, that will probably bring more liquid out of the tomatoes. If I ever did make this and it ended up being too chunky and dry, what you can actually do is if you have at least about an hour ahead of time, you can add a little bit of salt in here. I don't usually add salt when I cook anything, but you can put a little bit in there, and salt actually brings out liquid out of almost anything like this. If you've ever done eggplant, when you cook eggplant, you actually salt that beforehand to pull the moisture out. That way you don't end up with a big mushy piece of eggplant. So we'll go ahead and put this top on, and hopefully there's enough headspace that we can shake this up. So this is what it ends up looking like. Pretty much salsa. It's got a lot of color in it because we've got the green tomatoes, the purple red onions, some red tomatoes, even some yellow ones. A good important step to anything that you make, it's the taste test. So it's pretty good, but one thing that I love, rosemary. We're gonna add a little bit of this, not a lot, maybe 1/2 teaspoon, just to give it a little bit of extra something. If you're using fresh, definitely chop it up. If you're using the dried stuff like I am, it's good to just get in the habit of crushing it up a little bit. It doesn't need to be perfect. Once you put it in with all this liquid, it'll pretty much saturate itself and make it a little bit easier, so you don't have to like sit there and chew on sticks or anything. But that's pretty much it. After your taste test, you can add whatever you like to change it around to what you want, but before we added the rosemary, that's pretty much the simple form of it. As Melissa can attest to, when I make coleslaw, it's very rare that I ever make the same coleslaw twice. I change it up a lot with seasonings, how I make it, what I add to it, produce-wise. But don't be afraid to experiment. That's what we're all about here. We try to do different things, try new stuff. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you get to try to make some of this, because if you ever make burgers, this is a very good addition to it. And actually, it saves you by not having to put so many other condiments on here, because pretty much for the average American and what they put on a cheeseburger, it's all already in here. But I thank you guys for stopping by, and I hope to see you guys soon with more cooking videos and more ideas to share.